Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today, we're going to talk about the afterthoughts provided by Harvard's physicist Avi Loeb with regard to the hearing in the Senate subcommittee with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick that happened earlier this week, which turned out to be an absolute complete disaster and basically spells doom, I think, as far as I'm concerned, with regard to how Congress is going to handle UFOs from here on out. I think the people in Congress, they're a bunch of liars. There was hardly any other senators at this hearing. When you look back at it, there was 3 senators basically, where that was all that was there. They didn't really focus on the anomalous qualities of these objects. They talked about Chinese and Russian objects. I mean, that's what the concern seemed to be. So it doesn't seem to me that these people they're just not legitimately concerned with disclosure or anything to that effect. They're just not, and I don't see this going anywhere. Not, at least not through Congress. It doesn't look good for whistleblowers either. I don't think that we're ever going to get the truth from the government. I just don't believe it. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they have already destroyed evidence and documentation from years past over this. I mean, there might not be one shred of Roswell evidence left. I wouldn't be surprised if all those things were destroyed the way this is going. But before we get into this Avi Loeb stuff, I want to just talk about I've received a lot of comments on my YouTube channel as well as on my Spotify channel. I want to go through that, and also I want to talk about several of the Spotify polls I ran recently and what they're saying. But a lot of people in the comments that were given to me on my both Spotify and YouTube, I mean, basically, I didn't receive any disagreement about the way I saw it. Nobody said, hey, maybe things will get better or anything to that point. I mean, I think everyone seems to be. I mean, I think people who are interested in this subject looked at that hearing and walked away the same way I felt. I mean, basically that it was garbage, that there was nothing provided there, that it seems like we're taking a step backward, that what it seemed like a slow disclosure that started in 2017, it started coming off the rails like 2021, 2022. It seems like things were getting pulled back, even though there was all this excitement over these different UFO offices, and now this new AARO office, which is supposed to take reports from all the different departments in the defense of the United States and look at them and study them and come up with explanations. I mean, basically the whole thing was downplayed by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I stated after the hearing was over that he's either lying or that he's not given all the information. But I've listened to some other people online who state otherwise, that they think he's just outright lying, and I'm starting to think that now. I think that he's lying. That I think that he thinks I don't know how you could look at some of these objects and think that they're not showing they're not something that's more advanced than anything that we on Earth could conceive. I mean, just based on some of the other reports that if this guy has access to a lot of different things, which they're not releasing it to the public, right? They're not releasing any of this stuff to the public. They hang their hat on the means and methods. They're worried that people will see how they're obtaining this data, and so they can't show us it because then our enemies will know what kind of systems we're using. But I think that's just that's a red herring. That's nonsense. I mean, if these objects are nothing, then why don't they share them with us? But see, the whole bottom line is this: I already know there's something here. I know for a fact. I just want to know more about them, right? And that's why I'm doing what I do. This is why I talk about it online, because I've seen one of these beings. I've seen one of the craft up close and personal, 2 different occasions. So I know that there's something going on here. I know that all these other people that have experienced these things over the decades are not liars. I mean, of course, I'm sure some of them are, but not all of them. And then there's some cases which, I mean, it's as far as I'm concerned, it's absolute proof. You look at the Ariel school incident of 1994. That's absolute proof as far as I'm concerned. You had over 60 witnesses, children, school-aged, elementary school-aged children that saw a flying saucer land and beings exit it, and one of the beings communicated telepathically. If that's not proof, then nothing is. I mean, that would stand up in a court of law. But again, we're playing this stupid game. Like again, this AARO was created for I mean, why? I think it's actually worse than Blue Book. I mean, Blue Book at least would go out and look at citizen sightings and investigate them, landings, really good sightings. They would go out and investigate them. This doesn't even do that. This is all focused on military incidents that involve the military and pose a threat to our airspace. That's what this seems to be focused on exclusively. But they're not even sharing any information with us anyway. They showed us 2 different videos during that hearing. One video showed a conventional aircraft, which was unidentified at first, but they were later able to later identify it as a conventional aircraft. And they showed an orb hovering over the Middle East in a war zone, and which was unidentified, and that was it. They're not showing us the good stuff. They're keeping it from us. And the reason I said that maybe Sean Kirkpatrick is not lying is because he's not being provided all the information. But he really, really downplayed it. After looking at this again, I think that he pretty much outright lied, and that's just my opinion. Now I think he lied during this, and he's not. He either. I don't think he is getting all the information that he should get. That information goes to the secret control group, right? That has nothing to do with this AARO. This AARO is all just it's just the lighter stuff, the stuff that's really hard to tell what it is. The really good stuff, believe me, just like in the Blue Book era, would go to the really good stuff back in Blue Book era would go to the control group, Majestic 12, whatever you want to call it, while the the other stuff, the stuff that was really hard to prove one way or the other, or that was most certainly prosaic, would go to Blue Book, and they could easily debunk it then. And that's what we're seeing here. I mean, this is, and then of course you have the Congress members acting like idiots, right? You have the Congress members just basically, you have to realize that a lot of these people, I mean, you look at both Republicans and Democrats, they both sides receive millions of dollars every election season for every campaign from the military-industrial complex, from places like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, right? They receive lots of money for their campaigns. So you think that and I believe, and I think a lot of us have come to the conclusion, it's that these secret weapons manufacturers are the ones that are controlling this, basically, and the Pentagon acts as a bodyguard. That's what's going on here. The Pentagon, basically, what the whole bottom line to this is that they want to come up with some sort of weapon that we could take over the world. I mean, that's what it is, and they're doing it secretly, and they don't want to share this information about the extraterrestrial reality with the public because then they're afraid that somebody else might figure it out before we do. That's what it comes down to. And but at the same time, you can't keep this story covered up as long as they have, but they are. So that's why I don't think we're ever going to get anything out of the government. This recent hearing really has me upset because I think we're seeing the end. It's coming to an end. The openness that we initially started seeing after 2017, it's really tightening up now. This was probably the worst hearing of all the hearings that we've had so far, and we'll see how it goes in the future, and we'll see what's going on with these whistleblowers. But I just read another article that now they're not even going to pay for the accommodations and food and everything for whistleblowers to come to Washington. It's basically like they're trying everything in their power to make them stay away. I mean, come on. So it doesn't look good. We're not going to get it from the government. It's going to have to come from the people. Now, you would think that one of these people might be Avi Loeb. We'll talk about what he says later, but now he has the Galileo project. He's the head of that, which is trying to study UFOs. I don't know. I mean, see, again, it's like why do we have to do all these things when there's already somebody in the background that already has all this information that's been studying it for decades? Anyway, I'm just going to go through some of the comments I've received over the last couple of days. We'll start with the YouTube comments. Here's King Fool said, "Sigh, so frustrating, about as transparent as a rock. Echo your frustration." So yeah. I mean, I'm frustrated. Everything I see here, people are pretty much in agreement. Here, Paulo says from YouTube says, 25 minutes in and what a yawn fest. I want to see the aerial school alien beings explained away. Damn it. Yeah, like let anybody try to talk about that in public. I mean, what if we had a hearing where you brought in like 5 or 6 witnesses to the aerial school who are all adults now, but were children when this thing happened, and they talked to Congress about it. I mean, that would, if more people, not everybody knows about that incident. I mean, if more people in the world knew about the aerial school incidents, it seems mostly people who are interested in the UFO subject, they're the only ones interested in it. I mean, of course, now that didn't happen in the United States, but that case itself, I mean, basically shows that this is real. I mean, that's just one of many cases, but that to me is one of the most significant cases because I think it's undeniable. There's no way to debunk it. Let's see some other comments here. Here's a comment from Where 3. It says the big problem I see with the open discloses the wrong sector of the government are the ones who have a free pass to disclose what they know or see. I strongly believe the group set up to handle actual UFO aliens aren't under our government control/regulations. If the Native Americans can have their nation within the boundaries of United States soil and diplomatic embassies and religious organizations can all be established here, then what would be any different than the government after Roswell deciding to separate out a sector that is completely outside of United States government control? They can keep the secrets from everyone, including Congress, President, and national security organizations. No different than the groups I mentioned above. It all makes sense when you think about it. Most of the secret bases being talked about over the years have all been under private contracts paid by the government, but under their own jurisdiction. A major general of the United States government may be ordered to speak in front of Congress and disclose everything they know about UFOs and aliens, but an Indian nation embassy employee or church representative can't be forced to say anything. The same would go for a secret sector set up as its own secret nation for the benefit of the good of the people of the USA, and no one in our government can force them to do anything. Yeah, that could be how this whole thing was established. That makes really, really good sense. Thank you for that comment. I mean, that is, that could be how it was. That's basically it's its own separate entity that doesn't have to answer to the United States government. Somehow that could, I don't see how that could have happened though, because all the other ones that have happened, it's all public knowledge, right? How can you do that secretly? But that could be, maybe that's somehow they did it secretly, illegally, I would say. It's just awful. And then here's another one. It says, Mr. Vibrating says, if there's a flip side, at least the United States government incompetence laid bare might spur competitors to pick up the ball and run with it. With such a public display of a slow motion train wreck where there's weakness, there's opportunity, and we're talking pretty low hanging fruit at that. And evening watching captures on only real UFOs or Space Doom or UFOs over Vegas, etc. And anyone and his dog can get the jump on U.S. intelligence experts. Talk about an open goal. This is basically America's gift to Russia, China, India, or whoever wants to step up and fill the vacuum of responsibility the United States government has abrogated and absolved itself of. Leader of the free world, my ass. So basically what he's saying here is that that other countries could decide to come out with the truth on this. But see, I think that the other countries, I'm not sure which countries exactly actually are in the process of reverse engineering this stuff. There's been talk that it could be it's going on in China and Russia and who knows what other countries. So they probably feel the same way as our government. I guess who's going to show their cans first on this, or maybe they don't. I mean, maybe some of these countries don't have any kind of recovered craft, and the United States is the only one that does. I don't know. I mean, according to Bob Lazar, back in 1989, there were 9 crafts that he saw at S4 in Nevada. I know a lot of people out there. Are some people in the UFO community who don't believe Bob Lazar. I happen to believe Bob Lazar. And then here's another comment from JD. He is playing with words. JD's talking about Sean Kirkpatrick. The senator seemed to be on his side. Maybe he told them more in the closed session with a good excuse as to why not disclose. Experiencers can bring disclosure. There are those that are able to stabilize some kind of communication. Those experiencers should start asking for disclosure from the beings themselves. Yeah, maybe. I think it's going to come down to that. I mean, basically, I don't know how, it's going to come down to the beings itself. Okay. I think if it's the beings are going to be the ones that are going to have to disclose it, I guess. But they don't want to disclose it either because obviously they're up to something here that they don't want people to know about. I mean, there's all kinds of different theories and conspiracy theories we could talk about, but the truth of the matter is, I don't know what's really going on. All I know is that there's something here, based on the things the research I've done, but more importantly, because of my own experiences. I mean, I've encountered one of the beings, and I saw one of the craft, so I know that there's something here that's non-human. But I mean, I don't know, what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, some people believe that there was a secret deal made with these beings by the government, which, I mean, let's think about it. Let's entertain that notion. Like I have trouble with this, but hey, it doesn't mean that I'm right. I mean, I don't think I believe this, but some people do. Some people believe that the government of the United States made a deal with these beings to share technology with them, with the United States, secretly, while and giving the aliens the ability to just go and kidnap, abduct anyone they want to do whatever kind of experiments they're interested in doing on us, without trying to make a big deal about it, playing along with the alien secrecy. Is that what's going on? Is that the kind of deal that's been made behind the scenes? I mean, Kirsten Gillibrand, for instance, she seemed like she was really interested. She's on the Democratic side. Marco Rubio seemed like he was really interested. Now, he wasn't even at the hearing on Wednesday. He didn't even show up. She was there. She's the head of that committee in that Senate subcommittee. I mean, it's like they forgot why they're there. Have they been told in the background, hey, we're not gonna give you any more campaign bucks if you don't start playing along with the Pentagon's line here? I just wonder what's going on, or maybe they're told of what's been going on, and they know they're all in on it now, and they don't want it. And they know they can't tell the American people this. Hey, we made a deal with the aliens decades ago, and we're allowing them to carte blanche to abduct anyone they want for their studies or whatever they're up to, but they gave us this technology and we're trying to reverse engineer it so we could take over the world. So now you understand why we've been keeping it quiet. So now you got to keep it quiet. Plus, hey, guess what? We'll run you out of your job here. I mean, these people are getting. When you look at these senators, right, and anybody else in the Congress and the House, they're getting sweet deals. I mean, they got benefits for life. They're getting big money, six figures every year, right? They're living better than you are, right? And the reason how they get to these positions is because it's because people like you and me vote for them, right? But unfortunately, the only reason we vote for them because that's the only candidates that we see all the time. They're the ones with the ads, and those ads are paid for by these people like the defense manufacturers, right? The weapons manufacturers, the gun lobby, all these big corporations and businesses, they pay for them to get in there. So we have no choice. So then they get in there and then they're working for basically the people that, even though it's basically legal bribery. That's what it is. This is a form of bribery that was legalized by the Supreme Court. So there's nothing we can do about it. We're just, basically they look at us like we're a bunch of peons. Anyway, switching over to Spotify. I'm going to look at, there's some comments here. I0 Kate said, or I0 Kate said, figures this would be a joke. Nothing to see here. We're just going to waste a few $1 million on BS. Department that will do exactly what Hynek did for Blue Book. Yep, that's like I said. They think we're all idiots. Exactly. Yep, they think we're all idiots. And basically same thing like you said here, like what Hynek did for Blue Book. Basically downplay everything, act like there's nothing to it, focus on the threats from China and Russia, get you all afraid about that, And here Jason Frederick said, this was just a bunch of administrative nonsense. We will not get anything from the government. I totally agree. Exactly. Yes. Bingo. Yep. And that's where we are. We're just not going to get anything from the government on this. And then I did a poll, and it still has 28 days to go, I guess, but so far there has been 30 votes, and I asked the question: which best describes your feelings about the Senate UAP committee hearing with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick? The biggest one so far, that received the most votes, was "Tell the Truth Already." 33.3%, or 10 people voted for that one. Then the next two received 23.3% or 7 votes each. Insult to intelligence, and they think we're dum-dums. Yes, they do. They think we're dum-dums. I mean, now some of us out there are not dum-dums. Some of us could see through this whole facade, and we know that there's something going on, and that's why it's all of these things. Everything I put on here, it's all of these things, isn't it, right? I mean, you watch this whole thing, it's like, yeah, tell the truth already. They think we're dum-dums, This is an insult to my intelligence. I mean, all these things could, which one is the strongest one? I guess I was asking. It's just it's so upsetting. Okay, and then the next in line was extremely unsatisfactory. 10% or 3 people voted for that. And another one was like watching robots. 6.7% or 2 people voted for that. And finally, sleep-inducing. Only 1 person voted for that. 3.3%. But all of these things. I would say that all of those feelings are something that you could have gotten out of that hearing. It was very upsetting, and I mean, there's probably some more things we could say, but we'll save it. We'll save it. I think you only get like 7. I can only put 7 answers on there. You could take. I can't put anything more than 7. And so, but I did have. I guess I could have put 1 more on there, but I had 6. But I could put up to 7 on there. But anyway, thank you for all the comments I received, and thank you for the people on Spotify who also participate in my polls. I've been running polls just about every time on every podcast recently, and I really appreciate it. And anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to go through what Avi Loeb has to say. Okay, we're back. Now, Avi Loeb, of course, as you know, as we talk about this guy, he's interested in trying to get to the bottom of UFOs and whether I think he's legitimate in this fact, but I'm not sure if he's going about it the right way. I guess time will only tell. But anyway, he provided this on Medium.com the day after the hearing. It says, afterthoughts on the second UAP Senate hearing. Excuse me, it was on the day of the hearing he provided this. And we'll go through this and talk about it as we go through it. It says here, on April 19th, 2023, AARO Director Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick was the sole witness in a public hearing at the Senate Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities, chaired by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. This was the second in 2 public hearings on UAP, held merely a year apart over the past half-century. In a follow-up News Nation interview, I was asked, why the rush all of a sudden? UAP, for one thing, I just want to point out again, now he's writing it out as UAPs. UAPs. I've talked about this before. This is a pet peeve of mine. It stands for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena. Okay, you cannot put an S after phenomena. There's no such thing as unidentified anomalous phenomenas. That's not a word. You can't do that. You can only when you're talking about UAP, you only have to you just say UAP. You don't put an S on it. Well, UFOs, you could put an S at the end of that, right? Just an S, no apostrophe, just an S. UFO, small s, But with UAP, you can't. It's grammatically incorrect. But even the smartest people out there are doing this now, everywhere. And I see this, and I guess I don't like to see this. I can't believe that people are this dumb that they keep making this grammatical error. It's UAP. But anyway, continuing here. He says UAPs cannot be ignored by the United States government because they may represent advanced technological capabilities of adversaries which pose national security threats. Okay, let me just stop right there. The United States government has never ignored these things. They've been secretly paying attention to UFOs since 1947. They've been definitely keeping tabs on UFOs and studying them secretly. All of this, again, this is like a phony ruse. It's like a fake facade that's built in front of the actual reality. It's like a brick wall that you can't see through. And people like Avi Loeb is part of that brick wall, whether knowingly or unknowingly, that presents this phony reality for the world in totality to believe in. But anyway, continuing here. This was evident from Dr. Kirkpatrick's presentation, which revolved around these concerns. He noted that 650 reports are being studied by two teams within AARO, one led by intelligence experts and the other by scientists and engineers. For each UAP report, the inferences from the two teams are compared and vetted with the goal of transforming UAP to SEP, someone else's problem, namely an item to be handled by other government agencies. The reporting procedures and filters by cataloging data will improve over time as more UAP are reported and studied. Half of the existing reports involved nearly spherical objects, which could potentially be balloons. AARO studies anecdotal data that was obtained during the routine operation of military and intelligence sensors, but not through a systematic scientific study of the sky. Moreover, the best quality data will remain classified because the government sensors used to collect them are classified. But UAP should not be ignored also for scientific reasons in case some of them have an extraterrestrial origin. Dr. Kirkpatrick showed two video snippets of objects that were not particularly likely to be candidates for extraterrestrial devices. He said, "I should also state clearly for the record that in our research, AARO has found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known laws of physics." Okay, again, this is why I just want to stop there for a minute. When he made that statement, okay, this is why I gave Kirkpatrick the benefit of the doubt, because he was speaking for AARO. Now, whether Kirkpatrick himself believes that there's an extraterrestrial presence here, I mean, this is why I give him the benefit of the doubt, because he's saying here, AARO has found no credible evidence thus far. It's very possible that he was not given that data. But that's why I initially gave him the benefit of the doubt. But you know, in retrospect, I think he's lying, because I mean, if there was other stuff, just because you know you're the head of AARO doesn't mean you can't bring in some of your own thoughts and ideas on this. If you believe that there's something extraterrestrial, then you need to share that. I mean, if anybody who has studied this, right? I know Kirkpatrick's no dummy. I mean, anybody who has studied this seriously over the years, and apparently Kirkpatrick has studied this, they would know. They would know that there's an extraterrestrial presence here. That there's most certainly a non-human intelligence operating on this world, and they're up to something. Anyway, continuing. To find out if 1 in 1,000 UAP or interstellar objects represents an extraterrestrial technology, we must observe it with state-of-the-art cameras and telescopes that are fully calibrated and understood. Only exquisite scientific data will allow us to test whether humanity is the most technologically advanced species in the Milky Way galaxy. For example, the Webb Space Telescope could detect the heat emitted by the next weird interstellar object like Oumuamua and infer its surface area and albedo, given that its surface temperature is dictated by its distance from the sun. Simultaneous observations from Earth and the Webb telescope will accurately constrain the 3D trajectory of the object and any meaningful level of non-gravitational propulsion. New interstellar objects will likely be discovered in the coming years by the 3.2 billion pixel camera of the forthcoming Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile. The best path forward on the scientific front is not to focus on past anecdotal data by classified government censors, as that persuaded by AARO and the Senate subcommittee, but instead to collect new data. Okay, let me just stop there. Okay, yeah, I guess if you're being forced to start from scratch, you got to collect new data, because obviously the secret control group isn't sharing any of the old data with you. Again, like I talked about the other day, it's so stupid what we're doing, and I'm going to keep bringing this up. I brought this up a number of times. I brought it up before the hearing the other day. I mean, of course, I've talked about it a lot. Is that it's so stupid what we're doing here? Is when a lot of us realize and understand that there has to be a control group that has this information. I mean, we could go back and you even look at the Wilson Davis notes. I mean, just from that, you know that there's a secret control group that is studying recovered extraterrestrial technology. But yet, AARO is charged with going out and studying this and trying to determine what these objects are. It doesn't make any sense. We already know what these objects are. The secret control group, which doesn't want the public to know that there's an extraterrestrial presence here, they know, but they won't share that information. Instead, we have to do these kind of things. But I mean, I guess my whole problem with this is, like, say somehow the Galileo project does come up with some convincing or undeniable proof of an extraterrestrial reality. I mean, how do we know that the secret control group isn't going to step in and shut it all down and take that data away from them? How do we know that that's not going to happen? I mean, because they're already doing it now. So why are they going to let somebody else come out with the information? Like, let's just say, for instance, I go out on a walk today in the woods and I come upon a dead alien corpse in the woods. And I'm looking at this thing. And I know it's not human and it's actual alien. And I contact the authorities or, law enforcement to come. What do you think is going to happen next? Law enforcement is going to contact somebody from the Pennsylvania state. I'm in Pennsylvania right now. They're going to contact probably the Pennsylvania State Police. And then the state police in turn is going to contact somebody from the government. And the next thing you know, in turn, I'm going to get put away in a room for about 5 days until they keep telling me over and over again I didn't see what I thought I saw. And they're going to confiscate my cell phone and everything else and any kind of pictures and images and video that I took. I mean, so the only way we're going to get this out there, because there's a control group in place that doesn't want anyone to know about this. So the only way we're going to get any kind of to finally break this thing open is if somebody, a citizen, or possibly a scientific organization like Galileo Project, but I doubt it. I think it would more rely on just private citizens that are going to have to come up with the proof. I just don't see it happening through any kind of government or even this large-scale scientific Galileo project. I just don't see it, because I think in the end they'll be forced to not provide the information to the public because those behind the scenes, those pulling the strings, they don't want the public to know for whatever reason. So it's going to have to be up to the public. Like, again, if I was to find an alien body in the woods somewhere, I would not contact local law enforcement. I would do something else. Whatever it would be in an effort to try to get that information out before any sort of authority knows that I was what I was about to do. Because I would try to make do it in such a way where there would be no way to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Anyway, continuing. I'll start that other paragraph over again. It says here, the best path forward on the scientific front is not to focus on past anecdotal data by classified government censors, as that pursued by AARO and the Senate subcommittee, but instead to collect new data. This is precisely the mission of the Galileo Project observatories, the first of which is currently recording continuous data on the entire sky from Harvard University. The Galileo research team plans to build multiple copies of this observatory and place them in different geographical locations within the coming year. The vast output of infrared, optical, radio, and audio data will be analyzed systematically by artificial intelligence classification algorithms and search for anything other than natural or human-made objects that AARO aims to transition to the SEP category, which is somebody else's problem category. Any SEP is boring for the scientific mission of the Galileo Project. In other words, the scientific mission complements the analysis of anecdotal data from past UAP reports discussed during the Senate hearing. Within the coming years, the Galileo Project's data will contain more information than all past UAP reports combined. Rather than attempt to compromise their crowdsourced data from cell phones, it makes most sense to expand our scientific knowledge by using well-calibrated instruments under the control of experienced scientists. Dr. Kirkpatrick noted that NASA is conducting a parallel study that analyzes data from its climate monitoring satellites around Earth. Let me just stop there for a minute. Regarding the NASA stuff, again, NASA is under the control of the government. There has been so many different stories over the years where people in NASA, astronauts, are told to shut up about it. I mean, you had the late Gordon Cooper, who had, he saw UFOs himself, right? He actually handled film where they show where a flying saucer landed and then took off again, and it's never. He knows he saw it, right, with his own eyes, but it was never shown to the public. So, NASA's under this control of the Pentagon at the same time. So even though NASA's doing its own study, you think they're going to show us anything? It's going to come. The secret control group is in control, so they're not. I just don't have any faith in this NASA study. I have no faith in any of these people. Anybody in the government right now, after this hearing recently, I have no faith in the government at all when it comes to UFOs whatsoever. I did have some faith, right, in some of the the elected officials like Gillibrand and Rubio, right? People from both sides of the aisle seem like they were all ready to do something. And even you have Tim Burchett say that there's a cover-up. But what is he doing? What's he doing? He's not doing anything. He doesn't do anything. Tim Burchett's not doing anything. He's just complaining and not doing anything. He's in a position to try to do something, but he's not doing anything. I don't know why anybody wants to give him any credit. He complains. He's part of the government. Do something. Why are you complaining to us, saying, "Oh, the government's never going to tell us anything"? Well, you're part of the government, Tim. Why don't you do something about it instead of this partisan politics horse dump? Anyway, continuing. Dr. Kirkpatrick noted that the NASA is conducting a parallel study, blah, blah, blah. However, these satellites cannot resolve UAP that are a few meters in size. The Galileo project is currently analyzing higher resolution data obtained through a partnership with Planet Labs that allows the imaging of UAP of interest. Dr. Kirkpatrick reiterated the need for evidence-based, rigorous scientific analysis. Along these lines, I co-authored a joint paper with him last month that discusses the path forward to using known physics in constraining the properties of UAP. In the introduction section of our paper, we discussed hypothetical scenarios by which UAP might represent small probes from an extraterrestrial technological origin. Humanity launched 5 probes to interstellar space in 50 years and could send tens of billions of them in the next 50 years by allocating all military budget to space exploration. That we do not have any conclusive data to support the possibility that another technological civilization did that already is the rationale behind the Galileo project. It would be arrogant for us to ignore this possibility based on prejudice. And then he goes on to talk about... I'm not going to read the whole thing here. I'll read the very last paragraph. He says, the scientific process takes much more time and effort than the speculations of believers, skeptics, bloggers, or science fiction writers. Okay, let's stop here. The scientific process takes much more time and effort than the speculations of believers, skeptics, bloggers, or science fiction writers. Okay, let's not just talk about speculations here. Let's talk about experiences. I am not speculating. When I tell you that I've seen a being that was not human that somehow came into my bedroom when I was a kid and somehow subdued everyone else in the house, and it was accompanied with some sort of a loud electronic humming sound, and the whole event lasted for 20 minutes, that's not speculating. That's reality, Avi. Reality. Why aren't you looking at these things? How come it's I mean, I get it. Okay, it's a great idea, right? To stand there with the best scientific equipment you could get to try to study these things with high resolution cameras. That's great, and try to make a determination. That's all great. But what about all the other aspects to this phenomenon? What all of that other stuff, all these other people that have experienced these things up close and personal, right? How come you're not looking into any of that? What about the physical trace evidence when these things land that people like Ted Phillips have looked into over all the decades? Why ain't you looking into that stuff? Why isn't the scientific community looking into that stuff? It says takes much more time and effort than the speculations of believers, skeptics, bloggers, or science fiction writers. Okay, let's just talk about this for a second. We're in year 76 now. The scientific community just seems to just be starting to get into this. Where were you guys before? Where were you all before, right? None of you were looking into this. You know, one of the top people in astronomy, Carl Sagan, spent a good chunk of his life running around debunking the whole thing without even studying any of it. He had no time for it. He told people, I have no time to look into it, but guess what? It's not true. He just thought all these people must be crazy. See, again, the scientific community has dropped the ball on this for a long time, and it continues to drop the ball. This is only one little aspect of the phenomenon. You know, the objects themselves, trying to film them from a distance, but there's a lot of other things going on here. There's the cattle mutilations, the abduction, the hybridization program that people are talking about, the potentiality of something like that, right? Those things need to be studied by a lot of different scientists and looked into. We need to figure out what these things are up to. But see, again, that's where it comes back to what the whole problem here is. I believe that secret control group knows a lot of these things, knows a lot more than we could possibly imagine. And they're not sharing any of this information with the public. Because again, like I said the other day, they just look at the public like a bunch of dum-dums. These people, in their minds, are a lot better than everybody else, right? A lot better. That's how they look at everything. But anyway, let's finish this off here. It says... But this hard work is worth the wait. 76 years, by the way, Avi. 76 years, and the hard work is just starting. I'm not sure if it's hard enough. Okay, it's great that you're doing something now. You're one of what? I don't know. What's the percentage? 99% of the rest of the scientific community sitting back and doing nothing, while 1% or less is finally going to do something. Our current assets in space would never reach their destinations if we relied merely on popular views from 4 centuries ago and kept avoiding the scientific method pioneered by Galileo. Again, that's the end of that. And I'll leave the link, of course, so you can check this out for yourself. But as you can understand, it's very upsetting, this whole thing. You do have the Galileo project. Do I have any faith in it? No, not really. But it maybe. I mean, again, even if they do find something, are they going to be able to share it, right? Or will they feel compelled to at first maybe share it with somebody in the Pentagon, and then a person in the Pentagon will come in and say, "Okay, well, you can't talk about this. This is a national security issue now." So, I mean, how do we trust any of these people? Again, it's going to come down to citizens having to prove this, to bring the reality to the world. So again, next time you come across something, you come across a landed flying saucer, or a dead alien body, or a live alien body, or whatever, try to figure something out. I don't know what, right? Figure something out where you could get this data out to the public, but without somebody from the government interfering and shutting it all down. Because otherwise, we're never going to get anywhere with this, and it's just going to continue the way it has. And as you see, these people in the government, their tunes have changed. And the Senate hearing proved that. Basically, they're not interested in. They're all worried about Chinese and Russian stuff, getting you all scared and frightened about it. All right. That's what they're just about. They're all about fear mongering and feeding more money into doing what the weapons manufacturers want them to do, and that is the fear monger. So then we have no problem giving more and more money every year to the development of more weapons. Hey, like I said, the Pentagon has failed 5 straight audits now. 5 straight audits. Where's all the money going to? 66% of their assets cannot be accounted for. Think about that. 66%. I mean, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars. Where's it all going? It's going to the weapons manufacturers. What are the weapons manufacturers doing? They're doing stuff in secret in the background. And the Pentagon itself, the generals are acting as bodyguard to these weapons manufacturers as they develop and reverse engineer alien technology. Meanwhile, when the next campaign comes up, they're going to shovel more money at some of these Kirsten Gillibrands and Marco Rubios. Hey, now keep quiet. Thanks a lot. We'll get you elected. So that's where we're at with it. Again, and Tim Burchett, come on, what are you doing? Just sitting there complaining like me. I'm doing how about doing something already? Do something. You're part of the government. Anyway, until next time.